so inclusive, right? Like the women's field is so inclusive of let's all learn how to get there. Let's all they go and do those sort of videos and stuff in the desert. I mean, I guess the men, they don't feel as inclusive. I think it's
What
more
does it feel as
competitive,
inclusive? Oh, I
like the
mean,
men's competition.
yeah, I mean, men's competition, women's competition, whatever. You have to like push through a whole lot of uncomfortable feelings to get there. And I don't know. I think that's probably why you get like, oh yeah, they're like so there's so much camaraderie. And it's because everybody's going through the same thing. And yeah, definitely in the men's field, it's competitive and everybody wants to win. But it is unique how everybody does, genuinely want the other person to stomp their run. They just want to beat that other person too. And I don't know, with $100,000 up for grabs, it's like, as much as everybody talks about the camaraderie and everything, it's like, yeah, but everybody wants to win, and that's why we get such a good show.
I heard you in the booth. I think that was a fair point you made. There is 100 grand on the line, so then all
Yeah,
bets are off.
yeah, for sure. So many years in the past, it gets windy after first runs, and the decision is made to, you know, cancel second runs. 2013, I think it was the last year that Kyle won. They called the event, and I remember everybody being down at the bottom, and then it got calm, and everybody's like, "Oh man!" And so when I got in my headset, oh yeah, we're going to put it on like an hour and a half wind hold and come back for second runs. I was like, all right, there we go. That makes sense, to see this thing through. And if it's at all possible to get it done today, they're going to try. I thought that was pretty cool. You got to imagine if you're a rider who, there's my dog. My tortoise is
Awesome.
quieter than my dog. My tortoise is running amok too, but you don't hear anything. If you have your dream run in the can and then you hear that they're going to do a wind hold, you're probably like, how many places am I going to get bumped down? But as a fan, you're like, all right, awesome. I'm going to go for an hour ride, come back. And to finish this thing and not leave any question marks. Obviously, a lot of riders went up for second run and weren't able to drop. But the fact that we did get a couple riders who we had Janon drop and then obviously Brandon drop. I'm trying to remember, did we have anybody else take their second run when the seven went up to go for it? Do you remember?
No, off the top of my head, we had a lot of them just bowing out, which I respect. Like, depending on your line, the wind. So Whitlock, Eistead said they're happy to stay safe,
Yeah, Adolf
and they
too.
had Adolf, and they had a few guys on their drops call up. They had a few of these key drops or key canyon gaps where they had their builders and even other builders. I mean, I don't want to make that phone call. I mean, you can't be you have to be so conservative about the wind. Like, yeah,
Man,
there's some wind here. You don't want to go, I think it's fine, and then someone drops on a 70, 80 foot canyon jump. So you have to be conservative. So respect to the riders that dropped as well as didn't drop. Like, it's a
yeah,
horrible situation, and like the mental fortitude to go up there after that many hours off your bike and just block all the negative thoughts, block all the doubt of the win, and
for
drop in
sure.
is just it's just insane. This the sport. There's other sports that take mental fortitude, but this has got to be up there for what you're
I think
risking,
so.
and with the variable conditions and there's shadows now. Like, it's just totally different.
Obviously, I'm super biased because I think this is the most badass event, but I do think there is some validity to that sentiment because a lot of different sports, you're doing something that you do a lot. In this sport, you train as hard as you can on features that are as similar. But man, there aren't too many times throughout the year in general riding that you paint a top to bottom, hitting features of that size with intent to do tricks of that magnitude. It's just that day, and there's just two runs. And the fact that so many riders chose to go up to the top to sit out the wind and you got to be there. You can't not be there. Just have that focus and willingness to go. All the riders who decided not to go once going up to the top, they had all intentions to drop. But live to ride another day, man. If the wind is relentless and it's on a direct perpendicular angle to a 75-foot step down, then the right decisions were made in all those cases.
Yeah, you said an interesting thing. Like it's only 2 times a year you get to maybe do it in competition and get the reps in, versus other sports. A lot more sports are on a more controlled environment. Even motocross is on a way more controlled environment. The track does vary over practice and things like that. But then you throw in the wind element and the time of your bike. I mean, could you make more uncomfortable like conditions to try perform? Like I don't even know how you'd make it even worse.
Right. Like that's why I think it's the most unique and badass sport. Even big wave surfing, which
Okay,
I
that's a
mean,
good comparison,
how can
right? For like
anybody say that's
variables.
not right there
Yeah.
with the most badass stuff? And there may be circumstances where people will drop for waves on that day that they wouldn't drop otherwise because it's a competition. But I think in that sport, there's such like a hunger to drop on the biggest wave. Even outside of a competition, people are dropping. There may be like at the Eddy or something, a scenario where you're like, and if it's not a contest day, be like, nah, no, I'm not going to do it. And so I guess the comparison I'm making is what other sport would you go like, and still your objective on a big day at Waimea is like to get the biggest wave. But at Rampage, for somebody like, say, Tom Van Steenbergen, if he's going to go out there and do that front flip, he's going to go out there and he's just going to do that front flip. He's going to wait for the perfect conditions. He's going to do as many practice runs as he wants without any distractions or anybody telling him, like, the time is now to go to the top. He'll bite that off like that. Probably not going to do a whole run into it, front flip, and then a whole run out of it. It would just be that thing in the same way where you would be dropping for that one wave to just get that moment for yourself or the clip. But Rampage is, if you're going to do that big thing, if Tom's front flip is the equivalent of the biggest wave ever dropped into at Waimea Bay, well, you're also doing an entire run before it and an entire run after it. And that is a circumstance it's hard to find a comparison to in any other really high level badass sport.
It's so difficult. I mean, let us know in the comments. This is a great question. Like, what can we compare and relate the conditions, the magnitude, what you're putting on the line, the variable conditions, like to Rampage?